So, hi, welcome to so today I'm going to be looking at and really just teaching you and anybody else who then joins how to build a how to build a GCSE revision plan over the summer so that you can still enjoy your holidays, but without sacrificing your grades. So, given we're the only person here, which is great, which means that you get all of my time. So, is it Maddie? Are you a student or a parent?
I'm a student.
Student, fabulous. What year are you in?
I'm in year 10.
Year 10, fabulous. And just so that I can then gear this really then to you, then what kind of things have you been kind of struggling with um over kind of year 10?
Um, I'd say it's more of like the language or essay-based subjects I mainly struggle with. Because
Mm-hmm.
even if I get, say, like for history, if I understand the dates and stuff, I would mainly lose marks on the structure or not having enough time to write the questions.
Mm-hmm.
And same for English. And for
Mm-hmm.
Spanish, I'd say just me remembering the vocab
Mm-hmm.
would be
So
something I struggle with.
okay, okay, that's we can totally go over that. So what does your plan look like so far?
So far I kind of start with like the basic knowledge
Mm-hmm.
and then I kind of work my way up to past papers.
Mm-hmm. And what
But
did you
I,
get? No, go.
oh no, sorry, go on.
No, you carry on because you were talking.
Oh yeah, I don't really go beyond past papers and like
Mm-hmm.
basic knowledge. It's just
Mm-hmm.
mainly those two I focus on.
Okay. And what's basic knowledge for you?
Kind of like we're given booklets
Mm-hmm.
and in front of those booklets there might be some like simple warm-up kind of questions. So
Mm.
usually those kind of stuff where it's like kind of like the basic knowledge, like say for science, they might ask the definition of an atom or what
Yeah.
does this group in the periodic table mean
Mm.
and stuff like that. So usually just simple ones to get me in the mood for the subject.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got somebody else joining, so I'll just say that I know that I know who I'm kind of gearing this at, and then we can kind of get into is there anything specific that you want to get from this?
Um, I'd say trying to find the motivation to study because I
Okay.
don't, revision isn't something I do unless there's a test coming up.
Okay.
And that's usually say like a week before the test, that's when I'd start revising and say making flashcards. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't really find the motivation to do that, say, as soon as I finish learning a topic in school.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay,
just
so
finding,
yeah, go.
sorry, just finding something that is like effective and easy for me to do.
Yeah, that makes loads of sense. So I'll definitely kind of gear a lot of what I'm saying towards that. Hey, welcome, Ruth. You can unmute yourself and say hey if you can, or you can type it in the chat. What I was going to ask is whether you are the parent or a student, if you can hear me, Ruth. If not, we'll just jump in. I'm hoping that you can hear me. Yeah, no, I don't know. Well, okay. You can type it in the chat. Well, for those of you who don't know who I am, so my name's Estriana, and I run something called the GCSE Spanish Academy. I'm also a teacher in a couple of schools. And what I do with the GCSE Spanish Academy and what I have done for far longer than I would like to admit is really help students really get clear, parents and students really get clear how they can um how they can accelerate this progress to a grade 7 to 9 without kind of becoming overwhelmed, becoming stressed, because I know that Spanish is just one of often kind of 10, 11, sometimes even 12 subjects that students are trying to revise for. And nobody teaches anybody how to revise at all. And I think sometimes we do a not a great job of it as teachers in terms of helping students revise. And so that is really what what I specialize in. And what we're going to be doing today, as I said, is you're going to be walking away with 4 key actions that you can take that is going to help you build that GCSE Spanish plan. And then I'm actually going to walk you through and give you one of 3 ways in which you can further accelerate that process. And then hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end to have a little bit of Q&A if there's anything that I've said that's kind of just gone, you've gone, oh, I don't get that. So if you've got any notes, do take them. And yeah, so we'll get started. So one of the things that students often don't do or fail to do, and this is what I've seen over the last kind of 13, 14 years of teaching, is they don't create a plan. And I'm sure everybody's heard this phrase, if you fail to plan, you actually plan to fail. And I don't like to use the word fail, but if you fail to plan, you plan to underperform. Because a lot of students do that last minute cramming right at the end, and that can be helpful. But what happens is your brain hasn't had enough time to really get to the place where they understand everything to be able to perform as best you can. And that means that exams become stressful. And one of the things that I love about my students is they actually say to me, they say, Estriani, do you know what? This whole exam season wasn't stressful. I've watched my friends and they're like doing all-nighters and they're really stressed. And my students just don't do that because they start revising early. And I know that we'd mentioned kind of motivation, but often students aren't motivated because they don't know how. So I'm just going to walk you through what those 4 really it's my accelerated progress method, and I really developed this accelerated progress method as a solution to that problem. Students have no idea how to revise, they don't know they don't know where to start. Well, this is exactly where you start. And I'm actually going to see if I can pull up a whiteboard and then get drawing for you. But document, whiteboard, there we go. Share. So the accelerated progress method is built from what I call my 4 Ps. And the first P stands for prioritize. So it's about prioritizing, one, how often you're going to study and what you're actually going to study. So there are actually 4 areas, and I'll try and draw my triangle here. There are 4 areas that students need to kind of master. And Mandy, you'd said one of them, and you said that it's kind of past papers, which actually goes up here. So this is what I call my study pyramid. And the further you go up the study pyramid is the less effect or the less benefit that study focus is going to have on your grades. Can we all see my screen, by the way? I'm just hoping that you can. Hi, Ruth. Can you let me know if you are are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. And you? You okay?
Yes, I'm good, thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Glad to see that you got in. I was just going to ask, are you a parent or a student?
Yeah,
Just so
I'm the mom. Yeah, I'm the mom.
Mum.
I'm in fact I speak Spanish. I'm from Mexico.
Oh.
Yeah, and but my children they don't speak Spanish, and my daughter she's gonna do the GCSEs in 2 years, and then I worry.
No need to be worried. We've got that covered. So I know sometimes I've worked with a lot of parents who are kind of native speakers, and then their children don't speak Spanish at all, and they've got to start right from the beginning. And you think, oh no, how am I gonna?
Yeah, no,
How am I?
they understand, but they don't speak. That's the problem, and like you say, they don't know how to writing because they've been living in England for so many years. My youngest, she's 14, and all her life she's been here in England. Yeah, okay. And but we speak at home. My husband he's from Valencia, from Spain, and we speak Spanish. But unbelievable, they don't speak Spanish.
It's okay. I work with a lot of parents that have that problem. But this is still going to be really, really helpful for you, and helpful for your child.
Yeah.
No worries.
Thank you.
So this is, so as I said, that this is my study pyramid. So the further you go up it, the less it's going to have, the less effect that it's going to have on your grades. And so right at the bottom of this is grammar. So depending on what, so I'll go up all of it. So the next thing is ideas. I'll tell you why in a second. The one up is then vocabulary, and the last thing is past papers. And so a lot of people look at this and go, oh my gosh, really? So right at the bottom, as I said, is grammar, because that is going to make the most impact on your grades. Why? Because if you're not using the language accurately, nobody can understand what you're saying. So if you're not focusing on that grammar, you can have the best ideas, you can learn all of the vocabulary, and you can complete as many past papers as you can. But if your grammar's not good, you're not going to get any marks. The next step up is being able to create ideas. Now you think, well, why is ideas a thing? Well, because one of the questions that I often ask students when I'm in the speaking exam or in the writing exam is, do you recycle? And most of us will go, yeah, or no. And that will be, yes, I recycle. But the exam is actually wanting especially in the general conversation part of the exam, it's wanting you to say, yes, I recycle. When I was younger, I didn't used to recycle, but now I recycle. In the future, I think it's going to be really important to X, Y, and Z. And you have to be able to create those ideas to be able to actually grasp the marks that you want in the exam. If you're not doing that, you can learn as much vocabulary as you want. You can complete as many past papers, but if you don't have the ideas to be able to express yourself, which is 50% of your exam, so the speaking and the writing, you're not going to get any marks. Then the next step up is then learning that vocabulary and making sure that you've got enough vocabulary, because that's more important than past papers, because you can complete as many past papers as you want. If you're not learning the vocabulary, the reading and the listening is going to be really difficult for you, and you're not going to have enough vocabulary to be able to write in the writing or speak in the speaking exam. And the final thing that you want to be focusing on is their past papers. And so that is, but often students, as you'd said, Mandy, is often students make that mistake of starting with past papers, thinking that that's the fastest way, because that's the fastest way to get better at English or to get better at maths or to get better at science. But languages is just so different, because you can't really plan as well for exam questions in languages as you can in maths and science, because they've got such a closed set of questions that they can ask you. There is such a broad range of things that we can talk about in the exam, and that's why we go up like this. So one of the things, you think, well, okay, where am I going to start? Well, if you look at your year 10 mocks or any papers that you've done, and you want to look at your lowest grade, if your lowest grade, so even if you got, say, a 7 in your other mocks, if your lowest grade is a 5 in any of them, you want to start with grammar. Why? Because that lowest grade there is often telling you that it's just the way that the rubric works, the mark scheme works, that there is an issue with your grammar. And so if you focus on mastering your grammar, and that be the only thing that you focus on, and we often use, what I do with my accelerator students and what I do in my group program, is we have one focus for one half term. And most students in year 10 and at the beginning of year 11, actually their sole focus is grammar, and their sole focus is grammar for a while. And we'll kind of look at why that is in a little bit. However, if by some chance or as you get further along in your Spanish studies, once all of your grades are a grade at 6 or above, so your lowest grade is a 6, that's when we move to focusing on building your ideas, because that's building your ability to be able to express yourself and having those interesting ideas that are going to impress the examiner. Then once you're when you've been doing that, what will inevitably happen is vocabulary will just kind of come along. But then you know that you need to really focus on higher level vocabulary once your lowest grade is a grade 7. That is what is going to shoot your grades right up, because you've got excellent grammar, you've got all these fantastic ideas. Now you just need the higher level vocabulary to be able to boost that. Then finally, once your grade is then at that grade 8 or 9, that's when past papers are going to make a great difference, because then you're working on your exam technique. And so when you do things like this, you don't become overwhelmed, because you think, The whole of year 10, and for probably the first half term of year 11, you just focus on grammar. The next half term, you focus on your ideas. The half term after that, you focus on gaining more vocabulary. And just before your exams, you then start to do past papers. So you're not trying to do all of these things at once. The second bit of priority is thinking about how urgent and how important Spanish is. Now, if Spanish is really urgent, which means that to get to the grade that you want to get to, you need to make about 2 grades progress every half term. That's urgent, because typically students only make between 0.2 and 1.5 grades progress every half term if they're working hard. So if you've got to make more than that, that means you need to spend more time. And then looking at whether it is something that is important. Do you need this subject for your next steps? If so, then you need to, and it's important as well. So it's important and urgent. That's something that you need to be doing every day. But if it's not important and it's not urgent, you need to be thinking about doing it maybe once a week. And so those are the 2 ways in which you can prioritize. You're prioritizing what you're focusing on, just one area for one half term, and then the time in which you're going to spend focusing on that. So the next P, so that's prioritize. The next P that I look at is your perspective. And this is I love this one. Perspective. What I mean by perspective is recognizing the examiner's perspective. So often students make the mistake of, for example, there's different parts of the exam. So in this, I like to use the speaking exam, for example, and actually I'll use the writing exam, because Amanda, you mentioned that the writing exam was something that you struggled with. So students will often make the mistake of writing tons and tons and tons in the 90-worder. So in that, depending on whether it's 80, 90-worder. And they think that that's going to impress the examiner. But there are specific things that the examiner wants from that 80 to 90 word. It wants you to be able to speak or write in all 3 timeframes. So it wants you to be able to write in the past, in the present, and in the future. They also want 2 opinions. Okay, they don't necessarily need to be justified. And a variety of vocabulary. If you can do those 3 things, you speak in all 3 timeframes, you give 2 opinions, and you use a variety of vocabulary. Now, how can you bring that variety of vocabulary? So a variety of adjectives, so things that describe nouns, so like it's big, pretty, etc. Not using, for example, interesante all of the time, because that seems to be something that students always use. Making sure that you are using different conjunctions. So and, but, however, action, time phrases. So things like normally, 2 months ago, trying to vary those up. Action, negative phrases. So putting no, ya no, for example. Action, intensifiers. So things like very, quite, so muy, bastante, words like that, and action, opinion phrases as well. So instead of just using me gusta all the time, me chifla, no aguanto, no soporto, things like that, instead of just using me gusta and no me gusta. Okay, so when you understand the examiner's perspective, you're able to focus in on what you need to do, because then that therefore informs what is the next P, which is your plan. Often students just don't plan. They just think, oh, I'm just going to do whatever. I'm just going to kind of move with it. And that's very normal. But now that you understand the examiner's perspective, you can think, okay, what do I not know? If my focus is grammar, okay, I am going to focus this half term on being able to speak in all 3, write accurately in all 3 timeframes. So my plan, my goal by the end of this half term, or by the end of the summer, okay, I will be able to write in all 3 timeframes. So you're not then focusing on anything else. Your plan is just to focus on, okay, I'm going to focus on all 3 timeframes. That's it. How often are you going to do that? I'm going to do that on a Monday and a Wednesday, for example. So then you've made a plan, and you know that you're not just going randomly doing different bits. Everything that you do is focused on that. Because often students will just, we mentioned kind of you sit down, you do this, and you might do a booklet, or you might do a vocab test. No, I'm just going to focus on I'm just going to focus on writing in the past, present, and future. And that is it. Which then moves on to the how, okay, which is your practice. How do you study to make progress? Well, I don't know whether you've heard anything like what's called learning styles. So your learning style is the way in which your brain processes information. Often students think that one of these 2 ways are going to work. Flashcards, or they will just read their notes. Those 2 things often aren't working, and then they don't know what else to do. The reason why they don't know what else to do is because they don't understand learning styles. So there are 4 types of learners, okay? Or 4 categories of learning. So you've got visual learners, so people that learn by what they see. The key is if you're a visual learner, so you know that you're a visual learner when you're often looking around for instructions. You would rather me, for example, draw you a map if you wanted to get somewhere. The key here is color and images. So if you're trying to learn grammar, you wanted to color code your grammar, color code those endings in Spanish, for example. An auditory learner, so people that learn by what they hear. The key is that your ears hear what you're saying. So you often want to speak. So for example, if you're learning the endings, so you might learn that, for example, the present tense endings in Spanish, AR verbs. You're going to say, oh, as, a, amos, ais, an, hablo, hablas, habla, hablamos, habláis, hablan. And you're going to say that. That is going to you need to hear it for your brain to process it. Read, write, that's pretty explanatory. You need to read and write. And so oftentimes writing summaries are really, really good for these types of learners. Then you've got kinesthetic learners. Okay, these learners need to get involved. So they need to be doing things, constantly practicing what they are doing. They need to make sure that there is an active element. Games work really, really well for these type of learners. So once you know what your learning style is, you then need to then move into, okay, how am I going to actually practice this? Now, I don't have time to go through my entire study cycle, but the key here is active recall. And active recall is simply just making sure that your brain is doing the work in your study session, rather than trying to read through things and trying to use your notes. If you can just incorporate your own learning style and active recall. So for example, if I were to ask you, how do you conjugate the verb ser, for example? You're not looking at your notes, and you're trying to work out, you're trying to remember that lesson or etc., whatever you've done, and using your brain to do that. Studies have actually shown that you actually improve your results by 50% by just doing that. And then if you're doing that using your own learning style, you are then going to turbocharge and supercharge that process. And so when you do this, that then looks like, I'm going to show you actually, if I can find it. Where are we? A plan that I actually generated. I don't think it's going to let me. CapCut downloads. Is it on here? Yes, it is. Oops, not that. So when you follow this position, perspective, plan, and practice, that then creates I'll give you this template so that you know exactly what your next steps are and exactly how you're then going to be able to decide what your weekly goals are. So for example, this is a plan that I created for one of my students, Maya. Her goal was to improve her grammar. So she wanted to achieve 90, she wanted to achieve full marks in her 90-word task, sorry. And so we were focusing on her grammar. So if you look, so she knew exactly what she was going to do every single week. These are the tasks that she was going to do. It was completely focused on grammar. We knew that she was going to be spending, if I look, she was actually going to do this daily, except for a Sunday. So she'd already had that in her plan. Okay, so that is really a really rough, quick outline of my entire accelerated progress method. So just to rerun it, the first thing, position. Prioritize. What are you going to prioritize? What's the one thing that you're going to do? Grammar, ideas, vocabulary, or past papers. What's the one thing that you're going to do over this summer holidays to be able to continue to make progress? Second thing, perspective. What does the examiner want from me, which then is going to inform my plan? What am I therefore going to focus on? So by the end of this summertime, I'm going to focus on being able to write in all 3 time frames. I'm going to focus on being able to give a variety of opinions. I'm going to focus on being able to use adjectives, conjunctions, time phrases, etc. in my writing. And then making sure that your practice involves active recall and your own learning style. And that is it. So what I'm going to do is I can give you my what's it called? This template. So you'll actually have to, let me copy it. I'll copy mine and you can have that one. You can make a copy of it and then fill out your own. Now, one of the things that I do often do just before I kind of go into a little bit of quick questioning is I run basically Get Clear calls. They're 45-minute free calls where I will actually build this for you or for your child. And so we'll have a little bit of a conversation and we'll do that. I can completely do that for you as well. So that really is it. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to kind of unmute and ask your question about anything that I've just said. I've got a couple of minutes and we can go through that.
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering if this kind of plan works for other subjects as well, because I know especially the prioritize, the triangle, that was pretty language specific. So are there any other ones that you can use for other subjects?
Completely. So often my students will often say that they've used this accelerated progress framework to improve their English, to improve their science, to improve their maths. I just think of a student, Sadhana, she just went through this and thought, okay, what she had to go to her teacher to work out, 'cause I'm not a science specialist or a math specialist, but she just showed her this and said, well, does this exist in science? And then her teacher was able to break down, okay, these are the things, this is what you need to know for this grade, this is what you need to know for this grade, this is what you need to know for this grade. And then she was able to then just focus on that. But then the same thing with the perspective. Again, you just go and look at your mark scheme, the plan, exactly the same. And then the practice is exactly the same as well. So yes, it does work, and multiple of my students use it to get their grade 9s in all of their other subjects as well. Really good question.
Thank you.
No worries. Are there any other questions?
No, I think with respect about the question that if it's working for another subject, I think for the French, my friend, she teaches French, and she said that it's similar, the grammar, like with the Spanish one, like if you learn Spanish, it's gonna be so easy to learn French and another languages like Italian, Portuguese, and that's what. My friend is a teacher as well, and she told me, if she does French as well, that help with the Spanish.
Yeah, so I'm a French teacher as well, outside of Spanish is my main language. But I do teach French in school as well. And I have a few students that have just said, well, can you help me with the French as well? And I said, yeah. So I do the exact same thing with my students who are in French. We focus on we go through this and we actually then create that plan. And then they run forward with it, and they find that it's really helpful. And often, especially students that are just focusing on when they're kind of at that grammar stage, they find that they actually end up improving by about 2 grades by the end of the half term, and often kind of a grade and a half by the end of the 6 weeks holidays. Because you don't necessarily need to spend very long. Once a week focusing like this is going to turbocharge your grades.
Yeah, good. Excellent. Thank you very much.
No worries. Are there any more questions?
Yeah, I was wondering, do you have any like websites or PDFs you can recommend which have, say, like model answers for 90-word questions or any past papers?
So I have a few 90 words. So if you did you get this link from mum or dad or?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so they should be able to DM, they should be able to send me a message. And if they just send me a message, then what I can do is I can send them through some of the model answers that I give to my students. And then they can get that over to you. I just can't think where I've got it now, but I have got a few model answers. Were there any specific that you were looking for?
No, I just want to know how to structure it and what level should I be working at to get grade 9s. That's fine.
Okay, so to be fair, I've got a few videos. So we've got an online curriculum, and I can send you a few of those, or we can jump on a Get Clear call for 45 minutes, and then I can show you all of those, whichever one works for you. If you wanted to book that, where are we? They're completely free, by the way. This is my link to my calendar, so you can find a time that suits you, and we can jump on a call, and we would literally just chat, and then I can show you some of the things that would be really, really helpful for you.
Thank you so much.
No worries. Any more questions before we go?
None from me.
No? Okay, well, thank you guys for jumping on a call with me. I've enjoyed chatting with you and showing you my accelerated progress method. Any other questions, feel free to reach out via DM, or feel free to book in a call with myself, and we'll sit for 45 minutes and really just help you make progress. Right, that's it from me. Keep an eye on the Facebook group to see when we'll next do our next live. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
No
Muchas
worries.
Thank you,
gracias.
Roxana.
De nada. Ciao.
Adiós.
Thank you,
Bye.
bye.
Adios.
Bye.